Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Wednesday. Once again, I am not there. I may be back tomorrow, but we'll see how things shake out. At this time, we're going to be going over chapter 8.8. Now, very important, there is not a foldable or a classwork assignment to go along with this. Please make sure that you have the one from yesterday taken care of, but there is another video I would like you to watch before you take the quiz, just to give you another set of exposure to the same concepts. Once you finish with all of that, please spend the remainder of class taking chapter 8.8 quiz and working on anything that you need to work on for either this class or for another class. Now, without any further waiting around, the Think, Pair, Share question of today is what makes multicellularity special? What are the advantages to being a multicellular organism versus a unicellular organism? And what are some advantages of being a unicellular organism over a multicellular organism? Ladies and gentlemen, please pause the video, take a bit of time to think through some of these answers. All right, hopefully at this point you've thought through a couple of your answers and you've come up with something along the lines of unicellular organisms are able to reproduce much more quickly because they only need to make one other cell in order to reproduce, while multicellular organisms take much longer to reproduce. However, a unicellular organism needs to be able to do all of the things that life requires all on its own, whereas a multicellular organism allows for what we call specialization. Different groups of cells in this multicellular organism that do different jobs better than others. And so we shall begin. The evolution of multicellular eukaryotes from colonial protists is one of the major episodes in the evolution of life on planet Earth. We believe multicellular organisms first emerged about 1.5 billion years ago. Evidence that we have from the fossil record indicates that multicellular life evolved multiple times among different lines of protists. So how you get to true multicellularity? You start with a colony. A colony is a loose physical association of individual free living cells. Key point here for being a colony is that if you were to take any one of these cells out of the colony, it would be perfectly capable of surviving on its own, doing all of the things it needs to do in order to be alive. Natural selection selects in favor of colonies that increase efficiency, typically by dividing labor among your cells. This leads to having cells within this, at first a colony, that are specialized for one job. Cells that might be specialized for helping the organism to move, and other cells that might be specialized for bringing food into the body. You end up as a single organism when you cannot take one of these cells, remove it from the colony, and have it survive on its own. Eventually, these individuals that have specialized for one job get to that point. These cells cannot survive on their own. That is what we call a multicellular eukaryote. So your steps, you start with one, a unicellular protist. You got one cell capable of doing all the things necessary for, life. Some of these single cells get together and they just kind of group up. They form a colony. A colony of ancestral protists are collections of the same species in close contact. Now, we say that this is for ancestral protists, but it is also true for protists and other organisms today. After colonization or forming a colony, you get specialization. And in specialization, you have cells that begin to be really good at doing one job and not so good at doing these other jobs. Finally, eventually you get to the point where if you were to take these cells out from this organism, they would not be able to survive on their own. This gives you true multicellularity. And once you have that, the only step remaining between this organism and the organisms as you know them is, well, one, size, and two, the formation of gametes. This organism making cells specifically for the purpose of reproduction. Once you are making gametes, these cells for the purpose of reproduction, for the sole purpose of reproduction, you are now absolutely multicellular. You have these individual cells that are incapable of surviving on their own. Then what we have here is a brief history of life on Earth. Just a refresher, because we didn't technically do that this chapter, I don't think. Actually, maybe we did. I can't remember if it was chapter 8 or chapter 7 that we did this timeline. All right, quick refresher. Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. Crust of the Earth solidifies about 4 billion years ago. You get your first prokaryotes about 3.5, 3.6 million. I'm sorry, 3.5, 3.6 billion years ago, or 3,500, 3,600 million years ago. All right. Earth is inhabited by a wide variety of prokaryotic life for about 2 billion years before the rise of your eukaryotes. Eukaryotes first start showing up around 1.8 million years ago. Multicellular life starts showing up about 300 million years later at 1.5 billion years ago. The first multicellular life probably came from colonies of single-celled life. So we get down here around 1.5, 1.2 billion years ago. All right. Following that, you get animals. Animals first only show up around 600 million years ago, animals as we know them, and plants don't really start going on to land and then animals following them until much later, with land being colonized by plants around 500 million years ago, where your plants and fungi begin to occupy land. And then to cap things off, all sorts of other things occur, but the first hominids appear at about 2.5 million years ago, with Homo sapiens first showing up around 200 or 100,000 years ago, and recorded history beginning around 3,000 years ago, if my memory serves. Actually, that doesn't seem right. I don't actually remember when recorded history starts. Sorry, everyone. But that concludes chapter 8.8. Please take this opportunity to watch the other video that is linked, and I hope you have a fantastic evening. Please make sure to take the chapter 8.8 quiz before the end of the day today. If you have any questions, please log into the Zoom, and I will talk to you then. Have a nice day, everyone. Goodbye.